Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Explore AI Summit. We are in session 2 of 3 today, and welcome back to anyone who was with us in the first session. Welcome to anyone who is joining us for the first time. This session, we're going to be talking about NotebookLM, which I am really excited about because this is a completely new tool to me. And we want all of you to have all of this great information. So you can grab that link that is at the bottom of the slide. And I'm going to grab that for you as well and drop that into the chat so that you've got it. And then you will have all of this great information that you can follow along with, you can annotate, and all that good stuff. All right, that is in the chat. So let's introduce ourselves. My name is Sarah. I do a lot of work with Logix on lots of different tools, primarily Minecraft. And I am super excited to be here today in the extremely capable hands of Danny. So Danny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I was trying to stay on brand there and have a sip of my coffee while I was showing my giant coffee cup picture. My name is Danny Leeming. I am from Castlegar, British Columbia, Canada. It is now, there's daylight poking through my window now. It's not quite so early in the second session. I am a teacher, librarian, a technology integration specialist. I do a little bit of work as an adjunct professor in teacher education. I've been working with Logix or other consulting groups for 5, 6, 7, 8-ish years now, both in person and online. I love to do film and media stuff. I try and keep busy as if you can tell. And you can follow us both on Blue Sky there, which is it is popping right now with education stuff, which is a great place to be. And I am really excited to show off NotebookLM. I hesitate to use the word evangelist for this tool, but oh man, it is my favorite tool by a long shot.
Well, I am really excited to see what you have to tell us about. As we head into our session, I do want to take a moment to pause and acknowledge the fact that even though we are meeting in a virtual space today, we are meeting from physical places. So I invite everyone to reflect on the lands where you are, and I would like to acknowledge that I'm presenting today from the ancestral lands of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, which includes the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, on whose treaty lands I am very fortunate to be able to live and work today. So we want to say thanks to Logix for letting us be here today. And we do want to point out that logixacademy.com is the website where you can find all of the amazing programming that goes on today and throughout the year. And if you have anything really cool to share, we are on the socials at Logix Academy, and please do not forget to tag us in on that. We want to give a shout out to all of our training partners at Logix who let us bring amazing PD to you throughout the year. That includes Microsoft, Google, Apple, and Minecraft, which is my jam. That's where I spend most of my time. And we also want to let you know, because a lot of people don't actually know this, that there are physical, not just digital STEM solutions that Logix offers as well, from everything from early elementary through to post-secondary and makerspace. And you can learn more about that at logixacademy.com/products.
I think it's important to point out with the robotics stuff that the folks at Logix, the full-time employees, we're contractors with Logix, but the full-time employees that work with the robotics and the computing stuff, they go through a really thorough vetting process for the products that they sell, so that they're looking to bring stuff in and support you through the lifespan of the product rather than just sell you stuff.
Yeah.
Anybody can sell you stuff. It's more about like selling you a good product that can be cared for and ushered into your classroom with support and clear learning intentions, which is a very different approach than a lot of people take.
Yeah, and we've been on the Logix Slack. There are a lot of conversations going on right now about some of that work that's going on. And as someone who's kind of on the edges of it, it's just really fascinating and inspiring to watch. It makes me really happy, the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to drop another link into the chat. So just wanted to remind everyone that CS Ed Week is coming up, and there are tons of events going on at Logix for CS Ed Week. You can see just a sample of them on the screen. So do be sure to go and check out logixacademy.com/live events for all of those amazing things. The Hour of Code from Minecraft this year is so much fun. It's basically like, what if Minecraft was the Muppet Show? So I will be dipping my toe in and out of those in different ways, but there's so much more than Minecraft. So do be sure to check that out as well.
You had me at Muppet Show.
It's so cool. And we do want to say a really big thank you to Microsoft for funding this event. Microsoft is absolutely committed to supporting all kinds of AI professional development and fostering a broader understanding of AI in teachers, not just through Microsoft tools, but for any AI tools that are useful to teachers. So shout out to Microsoft for doing that and allowing us to be here today.
I think it's really cool that Microsoft is doing the funding for this stuff because, like, I'm about to talk about a Google tool for an hour, and but I think it's like an approach to the integration in the classroom. At the end of the day, these tools are all I feel like, gonna end up working in a similar fashion, and I think understanding how and why to use them, no matter the brand name, only helps further the use in the classroom, and that's a really good and a stewardship based approach to the topic from the folks at Microsoft. So shout out to them. Are we ready to go? Are we ready to roll?
Yeah, it is your show. And saying hi to Robin for introducing themselves in the chat. If you do want to introduce yourself, please feel free to use that chat. We are checking in on it every so often, constantly throughout the session, and we will be able to address any questions that you have.
Perfect. Oh, it's Miss Hanksler's in the chat, one of my old master's instructors. Hello, Julia. She's great. Big fan. If you are watching live right now, I would love to know who is in our chat besides Julia and Robin. What do you teach? What are the things? What are the things that you're looking to get out of this session? Lots of, is that 2 from Manitoba? Heck yeah, let's go. So what do you teach? What is your age group? What are you hoping to get out of today's session? That'll help me tailor my spoken examples, because my social studies brain is going to use a lot of social studies examples in today's thing. And I don't math well, so we'll do our best. So NotebookLM. Before I even press go on the slides, well, I'll go ahead a little bit, because I just gotta wax poetic about this tool before we really jump into it. So my hope today is that I give you an exposure to NotebookLM and other popular tools, and what's different about NotebookLM that makes it really, really powerful, I think, specifically for teaching. And then we're going to apply that understanding to build some classroom supports. So we're going to look at what it is, why it's different. We're going to build some workspaces where I'm going to show you some examples. And then we're going to do some playtime. So I'm hoping that everybody watching live, you're going to take the opportunity to have a tab open with Notebook and jump back and forth and ask us questions as we go. And if you're watching the video on demand, you let that time play out and you play in a different tab as you're watching. Or you slow yourself down if you're one of those people that watches videos on demand at 2x speed. A lot of my students do that. I don't know how they do it, but I don't think my brain works that way. And this is, I don't just do it because Julia's here, but this is my warning, my privacy warning. I put in all my slideshows. So a starting place for best practice when you're using any of these tools is to minimize any information disclosure from the start of your session as a best practice. So what is the least amount of information you can give to these tools to get the output that you want? And if you take that mindset with all tools, not just AI tools, but all tools, you are doing good work to protect and ensure that your students' data and privacy is respected. Even if they've signed a waiver, it is best practice to do that work. Julia Hanksler might have been a pivotal person in my understanding of data privacy in my master's degree. So I think if you take that approach and you even ask for anonymous outputs and anonymous, like, it'll work with you, and you just got to do that work to be like, how do I get what I want without giving up anything that's about my students or my school or my location. So to get started, we are going to go to notebooklm.google.com. And when you get there, I have notebooks. So your screen will look close to something like this. It'll probably have a pop-up. I have a bunch of notebooks built, so it will look a little bit different. It will look like that when you're getting set up. So I'm going to walk you through building your first notebook right now. So let's pause while you get over to that tab, and let me just, as I said, wax poetic about the beauty that is NotebookLM. So one of the hardest things with AI tools is they don't know anything, first and foremost. They don't actually know anything. They have access to too much information. They know some tools that are plugged into the internet can see everything. They have access to everything. You don't know where and how they're coming up with responses. Anybody that tells you they know how these tools work is a liar, because I don't think really anybody knows how they fully work to some degree. Even the people that work at the companies that create these tools don't fully understand why they do the things that they do sometimes. If I can take you on a small detour, one of the things I've learned teaching a film and media academy program is that you get the most creative and most interesting stuff not when you let kids have access to everything, but when you put really interesting creative blocks on where they're going to go. Oh, Robin, that's very cool. I'm just reading the chat. So sometimes, we'll do challenge days in my program where students have to make a film, and they're restricted to, you have to tell a whole story, but you can't have any sound at all. And you get one day to make it, stuff like that. And that process has taught me that, like, sometimes creative restrictions are extremely helpful. Now, what does this have to do with Notebook? Notebook lets you build the box in which your thinking happens. So it allows you to build the full context and workspace for everything that you're doing with these very advanced tools. It does not limit the type of quality response it can get, but it will define down what it's working with to answer your questions. That might be a bit abstract right now, but I'll show you what I mean. So Notebook is a digital binder. It kind of feels like OneNote in a way, if you're familiar with the Microsoft products. It allows you to add up to 50 sources of varying degrees of size and complexity. And you can build themed binders, basically, or themed notebooks around certain topics. So you're met with this screen when you first set up. So let's take a look at sources. So if you're working in another tab, that's great. So what can you add to NotebookLM? You can add Word documents, Google Documents, Google Slideshows, PDFs. Can you add video? You sure can. Can you add audio? You sure can. There are some limits on file types. Word docs need to be converted to a Google Doc, but that's no big deal. You can paste text in. You can put websites in. You can put YouTube videos in. All of that can go into the same hopper and define a workspace. It is an incredible tool to be able to drill down and set up where you're working. So if you're working in the background right now, you can start adding a few sources as I keep talking. And we're going to give you a couple minutes to do that. If you're thinking about, like, oh, I'm going to add a YouTube video, what it's actually adding isn't the video, it's the transcript of the video. So as you're adding sources, if you throw a YouTube video in, for example, you might be met with the message that like the transcript's unavailable. I think like not to call them out, but Khan Academy videos quite often don't load into Notebook because the transcript is restricted in some way. So you can't get in, and like videos that are marked as for kids often won't import as well. That's because the tool can't access the automated closed caption generation that allows it to understand what's happening in the video. So let's head over to Notebook. You're going to upload a few sources. I'd love to find out what kind of notebook are you going to build. So if I jump over to my tab, I've got a World History 12 notebook. I'm going to show you guys this in a minute. It's my report card notebook. I've got a notebook for our district's professional development policies. I've got a notebook for Hamlet right now. I've got a notebook for Serpent and the Rainbow, a novel study in English right now by Wade Davis. I've got a notebook for Comparative Cultures Unit 1 Planning. I've also got a new course planning workspace. That's an example. And then if there's any administrators, vice principals, if you know any administrators or vice principals, I'm going to show you this policy manual in a bit. You will earn the most brownie points if you give this to them on Monday. They will weep with joy. I promise you this. So head on over, start loading in some sources, and we'll give you a couple minutes to do that. And then let us know if you have any questions in the chat. And I'm going to take a sip of my coffee because I'd like to be on brand.
I like the subject that Julie is working on.
So that's actually, there's a panel discussion in one of the sessions later on this afternoon, or today, I guess, depending where you are in the country. It's, there's going to be lots of documents when it comes to AI policy, and a notebook would be a great example. Like, let's say your district is working on developing their own AI policy. You could then go out, sort of send the tentacles out to gather all the policy documents from other institutions. You could throw in some post-secondary stuff. You could throw in some research papers. And then what Notebook's going to allow you to do once we get into the actual practical examples is say, hey, what are the themes that appear in every one of these? And it's going to give you back a report that's like, hey, here are all the sort of main tenets of these policies that are shared. And that's a great place to start. Like if everybody agrees on certain sort of structures within those policies, it's like, this seems to make sense. And it's speeding up. I talked about in my last session, right? The AI not being the thinker for you, but accelerating and turning your process into a race car so that you can just get from A to B really fast without trusting it to think on your behalf. And I think that's going to be a really exciting thing to do. We'll give you another 90 seconds to throw some sources in, and then just let us know what sources you're going to, or what type of content you're going to mess with. Julie, I know she's throwing policy documents in there, research papers, all kinds of stuff. Oh, I will also mention, I don't have the document handy, but Notebook does, if it's in your education domain, I do believe they have committed to some privacy protection for the data that's put into Notebook in an education domain. Don't quote me on that yet, but I believe that is sticking into my brain from somewhere. Oh, Emily's here. Hi, Emily. Emily is one of our Logix team. She's a rock star too. She would be taking the race car into the mountains, doing outdoor education. Okay, I'm going to hustle along here. So when you load your sources in, this is what you're going to be met with. You get met with this very cool sort of notebook guide, and it's got a sort of a bunch of baked in baked in options as soon as you get in here. I'll switch over to one of my live notebooks here. So let's look at, let's go to Serpent in the Rainbow. So I only have 3 sources in here, but you'll notice I've got the book, Serpent in the Rainbow. I've got both my English language arts curriculums from BC. And then you can bring back up that notebook guide at any time by clicking there. And it's going to say, do you want a briefing doc? Do you want a study guide, a frequently asked questions, timeline, table of contents? It summarizes all the documents. There's some suggested questions here. And then, or you can just start typing. And then over here, if you click the source, it also summarizes and gives you topics for each source in itself. So there's my Literary Studies 11 curriculum. It's going to generate me a little summary and talk about what's there. So I can drill down and get sort of AI summaries bit by bit on every different piece of the puzzle. So my little creative restricted boxes can get even smaller, right? Like it's a box full of boxes. I'm going to switch back to my slideshow. You can also I'm going to go back one sec. So let's say I wanted to do a study guide for this. If I click study guide, it's going to generate a study guide. It does take a minute to think. It's not quite as quick as some other tools, but it's going to generate the study guide. And then you can see it's a saved response here now. So there's my study guide. And then this is another fun trick that I mentioned in the slideshow later. If you select it, you can convert this selected note to a source. So it will then come live over here, and it can then be part of the box that you're working in. So as you generate good responses, you can file them into your source list, and then it becomes the more context. So let's say, like I'm going to show you in a bit, you generate a course outline based on all the stuff you're going to teach. You can then quickly convert that course outline to a source, and then it becomes the guidepost for the rest of your planning process. That sounds neat. Huh? When NotebookLM came out, I think the feature that grabbed people's attention the most was the podcast feature. So these are some screenshots of this is Hamlet. So I went on Project Gutenberg. I grabbed a open source public copy of Hamlet. I threw it in there. I generated some chapter previews. I put our curriculum in there. And then, what's a better way to introduce chapters than a chapter preview? A podcast. And so was this Serpent in the Rainbow? It might be Serpent in the Rainbow. So once you've got your notebook guide up, and I'm going to do this live because why not? So I'll share this tab. So Serpent in the Rainbow, I'm going to open the notebook guide. Right here, audio overview. Let's just generate one just because it'll probably be faster. You can hit that customize button and type specific instructions for the hosts of the podcast. So you could say, do a riveting, snarky review of the book Serpent in the Rainbow for Mr. Leeming's English 11 class. And the host will actually take on the tone that you want them to take. So it's going to generate this little podcast. And I think when this tool came out, this podcast feature blew people away because the podcasts are actually listenable quality, as opposed to like screen readers and stuff that have like the robot voice that drives everybody insane sometimes. This actually does have like banter and back and forth. They and they awe, and they have human qualities to their tone.
Wow.
That it's a little bit unsettling, like just a little bit unsettling. But for what you're doing, like you can limit the time. Like you can say, you could tell it like, I want a 5-minute podcast that previews chapter 1 of Serpent in the Rainbow by Wade Davis, and it's going to pop out that 5-minute audio podcast. You can see it takes a little while. I'll come back here, and then I believe I am sharing sound. So this is a summary. Let me know if you can hear this. Is it playing?
All right. Get ready to dive into Shakespeare. We're taking on Hamlet today. Hamlet, yes. Focusing on Act 1.
Especially for all of you starting out with Shakespeare in English Studies 11-12.
It can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, but that's why we're here.
That's right, to break it all down.
Exactly.
Huh.
And we've got a really special edition of the play to work with.
Oh, yeah, this is cool. We're looking at the first folio
Straight from 1623,
from Project Gutenberg.
like a time capsule almost.
It really is.
You get to peek into history.
Yeah.
I was looking at the scanner's notes earlier, and
Oh, yeah.
there's some amazing details in there.
What kind of stuff?
Like, you know that elongated S that looks like an F but isn't?
Oh, right, yeah.
And they had to use U for V sometimes?
Literally ran out of letters when they were printing.
Isn't that wild?
That's incredible. You know what else is wild?
What's that?
Different copies of the first folio can have slightly different text.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because of
So they're going into like, they're actually going through like the actual Project Gutenberg summary, like the lead in, like, oh, when you see this in the text, if you're reading the actual book, FYI, this is why this letter looks this way. And it's doing it in a pretty informal way. You can see the prompt on screen here that I gave it, which is like, just give me I just want an Act 1 preview for the students. Because I think when you teach Shakespeare now, for example, kids don't really get what's being said right out loud. I think that was true of me in high school. I didn't really know what was going on in Hamlet Act 1 until somebody explained it to me. So it's like, as a teacher, my kids need to sort of have some upfront learning. And instead of spending a bunch of time detailing it, you can say, hey, for homework tonight, here's this podcast. Listen to this podcast before you come to class. It's going to set all the context. And then we're going to read Act 1 together as a class out loud tomorrow. And then we can break down the story. And then the other thing that it's doing, if you go further in this podcast, is it's actually going to talk about how Hamlet connects directly to the curriculum in BC. So it's going to reference like, hey, these are this is the literary features that we're studying. This is that. It's going to go into complete detail to link Act 1 with curricular outcomes in British Columbia. Kind of cool. I'm saying amazing tool. It's also an efficiency machine. So again, thinking about that idea, this is something I'm doing at work a lot right now, which is like, hey, we're doing a novel study. My colleague's class is reading Serpent and the Rainbow by Wade Davis. That's why I keep bringing it up. Amazing book about cultural anthropology and culture. Pretty heavy duty sort of text for grade 11s to get into. So I went to my English colleague, who happens to be the co-teacher of my media academy with me. Do you have a citation format for the generated podcasts? Oh, that's a good question. The answer is I do not at this point. I would probably cite the model using the MLA guide. Anyways, so I went to my colleague and I said, hey, do you want some reading previews? He's got some learners in his class that, what is the value of the chapter? Like, what am I supposed to get out of this chapter before they start reading it? And so I went to NotebookLM. This is the notebook that I did this in. I'm going to switch tabs. Close. Oh, here's what it generated, by the way.
All right, so we're diving deep into Wade Davis's The Serpent and the Rainbow.
zombies, right?
Yeah, but it's more than just your typical zombie flick.
That's pretty cool. So that's generated, and then you can download that, just FYI, and then get rid of it, download it, delete it, recustomize it, make another one. So in the notebook guide, I had this and the 2 curriculum documents. That's all I had in this. And what I did with that is I then prompted it, can you create a chapter summary of Chapter 1 of Serpent and the Rainbow in a chart that has curricular outcomes on the left from Comparative Cultures 12 and major ideas and concepts or content from Chapter 1 on the book on the right. The chart's audience is students. So if you're in my last session again, using that Parks model, defining who I am, where am I going, who's receiving this information, what are the constraints, what is the format. This chart audience is students, so please do not include any extensions of learning or lesson plan ideas. Again, I'm restricting it. I'm like, I don't want you to give me lesson ideas for this book. I just want you to summarize. After you've created the chart, please create 3 to 5 discussion preview questions for students to think about as they read that they can answer once completing Chapter 1. Took me a couple little back and forths to get that dialed in. Sorry, I was on the wrong tab there. Once I got it to create and output the thing that I wanted. Then it was just copy, paste, now do chapter 2, now do chapter 3. And then what the end result is this document that took me 20 minutes to make that summarizes the entire book with the connections directly to the school curriculum. And it gives me pre-reading questions for kids to pay attention to, directly linked to the chapter text that they're going to read, so that then we can attack those questions as a group after the reading. And so this is 29 pages. Obviously, you have to check your answers. But now I've got these chapter previews for each chapter. The students are better prepared. This would have taken weeks to build with a regular teaching schedule, weeks. And now it comes out in about 20 minutes. I'm not giving the tool my thinking. I'm just race carring my process of take this and smash them together. Take this and smash them together. And because it's defined context, the NotebookLM is able to do that much more reliably, I find, than most other tools, because it's not gathering information from everywhere. It's just gathering key information from the stuff that I have provided for it. And so talk about a time saver for staff. The other thing that we engage in as teachers, Julia asked, how did I bring in the curriculum info link doc PDF? I went to the ministry website in BC and I downloaded a PDF document of all the curriculums that I needed, and I just upload them as a PDF file, and then it will read the text within there. Course planning. So I'm going to show you two different ideas of course planning here. This is, I have existing coursework and now I want to work within it. So this is comparative culture. So you can see I dumped in a whole whack of resources for my first unit of comparative cultures. So I have attached a number of documents, including the curriculum for a course in BC, Canada called Comparative Cultures 12. These documents are informational presentation notes and assignments that will form the first major unit of the course. Please create a high school course syllabus that links the unit's curriculum and content focus and major assignments in a table and provides an estimated schedule and timeline for the first unit starting in our second semester that starts on February 1st. Please include my information, Mr. Leeming, Mount Sentinel Secondary School, blah, 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 and provide an overview and rationale for the course with an introduction. And we get, drum roll please, it's not perfect, and I left it. I wanted to make sure I left it exactly as it came out of the model, but like it's a little bit hanky in terms of its formatting. But it's got all the stuff there, and it's got my first month of classes laid out with all the stuff that I already have. Like I'm going to go through that information. I've built it already, but do I want to spend a Sunday afternoon typing a full syllabus from start to finish? I'd rather do mostly anything else. This is like the admin work that really takes a lot of time to do. And I would rather correct this and fix a little bit of this formatting than build this table, go in, type the names of the presentations I'm going to show, and it just spit this out in seconds, and then I get to work with that. It's also got some other stuff, right? Like I could add my plagiarism policy to that binder and say, please include my plagiarism policy, add my grading. I have a grading philosophy document that I share with students. Please add notes and a summary of my grading philosophy. It would spit that out, add that to it. No problem at all. And then in, if I switch tabs, if I generated that, yes, exactly, Julia, cutting through our expertise. So I am doing the thinking in this. That's what's so great about this tool is it's all my thinking. Not to say that I'm the be all and end all of thinking, but like the user is doing the thinking. This is the race car. And it's accelerating the process and just like getting you from A to B, and you're telling it what to build for you. Now, if I switch back over to Notebook just to show you that, let's say this was the course outline that it generated in context. Like if I generated a response, so like if I just say summarize the serpent and the Rainbow Chapter 1, just as a basic prompt. So let's say this was the course outline that I wanted generated, and this was all my resources. If I just hit save to note, I've got my response there, and then I can convert selected note to a source. Then my course planning document, which I'm showing over here, then my course planning right here, then would have the course outline that it just generated as the template for the week. So it would know in February 5th, I'm doing this now. And so I'm going to say, okay, generate 5 questions for all the lessons relevant to February 5th as a pop quiz for my students. Boom, out it comes. Because now it knows my curriculum, it knows my content, it knows my schedule, and it just keeps, like, it iterates on itself, and it keeps that all within the box that you're building. This tool is so sick. It is so awesome. And then also, I think the AI is also like a great sounding board. In my last session, I showed how you can turn AI for students into a quiz machine to help them reinforce their own learning. But we have our own blind spots professionally. So it's like, hey, you've now seen all the content that I'm going to present to my class for Unit 1. What did I miss? Like, what other ideas could I fit in here? What other content am I missing? So like this example, like some of them aren't good. Like some of the suggestions it's going to have, we're kind of like, yeah, whatever, move on. But like this example right here really got my brain moving. Like another opportunity arises from reflection time prompt in the source, which asks students to consider how environment shaped the Sumerian view of their gods. This could lead to a comparative discussion on the Egyptian perspective as presented in source 3. Oh, by the way, folks, it cites its sources within all of its responses based on the material. So if you go and you click that little number 3 in Notebook, it's going to jump you to the document that it found the information that it's talking about. So it shows you, hey, you gave me this, and here's where I found it. And sometimes as we're reading, we don't catch every single thing that happens. And boom, out it comes. So which prompts students to compare and contrast the Sumerian and Egyptian views on their gods and in the context of the respective environments. That is a very interesting lesson idea. How did geography impact the religious beliefs of the Egyptian and Sumerian societies in comparative cultures 12? Boom. That's like, I didn't notice that. And away I go, right? That, like, it's just poking my thinking a little bit to get the engine running and get things going. Another question you could ask it is, if I was a student with a significant cognitive disability or dyslexia or something like that, what content that I am presenting in this unit would present challenges and what should I do about it? And it's going to then spin off a bunch of ideas for differentiation for your existing work. And you know all this as a teacher, but it's probably going to find blind spots where it's like, hey, you're going to show this. For example, I have some ELL learners. It's going to you're going to show this video, and it doesn't actually have a very good closed captioning system, or it doesn't have closed captions in the language that they speak. You could even upload a document. Yes, notebooks are shareable, Julia. We're going to get there. You can put up a class profile anonymously, right? Like students 1 to 15 are sort of here. 3 English language learners, 2 students with ASD, 1 student with a cognitive impairment. And then you could be like, for my class profile, please modify this assignment to match everybody in my class profile. And then it's going to spit that out within the context of what you're already teaching with the material you're already teaching with, as opposed to going out and grabbing everything human society has ever created, including the bad stuff. It's just working with the good stuff that you give it. Can you post the accessibility prompt in the chat, in the YouTube chat? Because I think Sarah can summarize what I said. I'm just sort of riffing a little bit. But the other thing that you can do within the context of Notebook is you're in your box, and it's a box full of boxes. So you can drill down even further by selecting your sources. So if I go back to my notebook tab, and I'll actually go into my, where is it? Comparative Cultures Unit 1 Planning. So over here, I've got like a bazillion sources in this thing now. So if I wanted to drill down on just Egypt, I would deselect all, and then I would come through and I would go, okay, Egypt, 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 and Egypt, Egypt. So now I can ask it questions just about my Egyptian content. So I'm getting rid of, I'm like, hey, ignore, oh, I misintroduced it. Ignore Hammurabi, ignore Babylon, ignore the Maori. We're just talking Egypt here now. And then it's going to give me stuff inside the context of just my Egypt unit. So the example I did a Maori example in the slideshow. So I'm defining my space within my space. So I'm going even smaller, even more restricted, and it's just going to give me this stuff. I prompted it, hey, pull a list of vocabulary words for my Maori unit, just the Maori unit, words that students might not know. And then it gives me a table of definitions. And actually at the bottom, it actually was like, hey, you should also go and get a pronunciation guide for these words because students might mispronounce these words and it might be offensive. And I was like, oh, can you generate a pronunciation guide for these Maori words? And it was like, you have not provided me enough information to do that. So I can go out, find a Maori pronunciation PDF or something, upload it, and then it can be part of that package. And then so it's actually asking me, hey, can you provide this information so I can make this thing for you? Because it doesn't have access to everything. Just an incredible, incredible tool. Now, what if you're doing it the opposite way? Which is, I work on a lot of teachers' computers. There's a lot of times I approach somebody's tabs and I see this.
I feel called out.
Yeah. Everybody has a moment like this where like they're starting a new course and they're like, oh, this thing and 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 this thing. Or their day-to-day where they're like, I'm teaching 6 courses or 5 courses or 4 courses, and I've got a bazillion tabs and also my grocery list and also my Facebook and also my personal email, and I've got 7,000 tabs, and why does my computer run so slow? Especially with a lack of, like, back in the day, we all just had the textbook that was the sage guide for every course. Now, not so much, right? Like we don't really have that. So you're kind of scouring and reaching out into the universe. So how does NotebookLM fix this problem? So as you find the gem resources, you add them to the notebook. And then your judgment and expertise is vetting and compiling a vision. Notebook is accelerating the process of bringing the vision to life. So you sort of use it as, okay, I'm going to file that. I'm going to file this. So I've got an example binder over on this other tab, course planning, workspace. So I've got some saved notes in here. I'm planning. So I've added my curriculum, first stop, Comparative Cultures 12. If the audience couldn't tell, I'm teaching Comparative Cultures 12 for the first time next semester. I've got in here, this source on the Indus Valley that is really terrific. It's actually, this might be the Wikipedia. No, OpenStax. I've got my historical thinking concepts, like the website that details all the historical thinking concepts in detail. I've got the Indus Valley Civilization. This is the Wikipedia, I think. Yeah. So I've got the whole Wikipedia entry for the Indus Valley. I've got a great video on the Indus Valley. The Cogito, I think it looks like Crash Course History, but it's something different. And then I've also got a full episode of Guns, Germs, and Steel from YouTube. Metadata tags. That's next level, Julia. You're thinking big picture. I haven't got to that stage of complexity yet. But you can probably put anchors in on some places so you can tag them by topic, perhaps. Anyways, so the thing that I've asked this document, to switch back to my slideshow. is, so once I'm sort of giving it some context. So, we just finished watching episode 1 of Guns, Germs, and Steel. It has access to that. And we are now exploring major pockets of civilization for the ancient world. Can you create a unit outline with the resources I've attached, focusing on historical thinking skills our curriculum emphasizes, and leverage the pre-learning from Guns, Germs, and Steel the students have done around the impact of agriculture and geography on civilization development? So there's all the thinking that I'm doing, and then it's doing the processing once again. So, now mix your own idea with the suggestions. Now create one that deals with historical perspective and different content you have touched on. And these actually link out to what it produced. And again, I'm going out of my way. I'm not trying to make these outputs look prettier than they are. I want you guys to see what actually just comes out of them so that you know what you're dealing with. Obviously, you're going to have to do some work in here as a teacher to make this ready for the classroom. But here's a bunch of unit ideas. There's another one here. Oops. Does that one not link? That one doesn't link. Oh, darn. But it's like I've got them saved as notes in here. So these link out to the outputs. Can you create a series of questions that will engage students with previous response outline that I can give my students to have them scaffold their thinking and understanding of historical perspective? Feel free to integrate language from the curriculum document, and it's going to do that for me. So starting from scratch as a course, you can sort of build up your notebook as you go. Only put the good stuff in, 1 out of every 40 tabs or whatever you open as a planning. And then away we go. Whew, how much longer do we have? We have 14 minutes?
Looks like, yeah.
Okay, 14 minutes. Okay, in my previous session, I showed you how to use a spreadsheet and next level prompting to create a report card template that's next level. I'm about to show you how to do that in an even better way. So what I've got here, this is a notebook with my grading criteria. This is like school grading criteria. This is my personal grading philosophy document, how I assess grades, the factors that I use. I do a lot of like triangulation of grading, conversation, observation, product. I've got my curriculum for my courses I'm teaching right now. And then this is my version of the previous session's example. This is my Friday notes document. And for the lovely folks at home, I have actually provided you a free template for my Friday notes document. So this is how it's set up. So I've got 2 fake students in here, Hank Williams and Garth Brooks. So here's their grade. This would be like an end of semester example. I've just got a few little notes in here. So Hank Williams, there's his grade right now. This I wouldn't put into the very, very end of the semester, but every Friday I'll sit down and I'll go strengths, areas that need improvement, next steps, anecdotes, and then sort of best piece of work or area of growth. And sort of like the anecdotes is like sort of like the highlight reel, right? Like it's like, we had a field trip to this place and this student was just absolutely over the moon. They were super involved in it. Like those little personal observations and personal connections that are contemporary to the moment. But by the time you come down to write 120 report cards on a Sunday, you're not thinking of all those little examples all the time. So this is a running tab that if you start a semester, and we're coming up to Christmas, most people are going to switch semesters in end of January, February. If you go into the next semester with this template and this mindset of like, I'm going to take 15 minutes every Friday and just sort of sketch a few notes about everybody. By the time you get to the end of the semester, you're going to have this like very rich observational, conversational reflection document about student learning for 5 months. And then we'll flip back to the slideshow. And then you've got your curriculum, your grading philosophy, all that stuff. And then you can throw a prompt into Notebook like this. Please write a report card comment for every student in S1 T1 Media Arts 12 that reflects the curriculum, my grading philosophy, and the included conversational comments from the document. Please do not exceed 400 words for each comment and format them in the same order in which they appear in the document, and do not include their name. Rather, please refer to them as student 1, student 2, etc. I did that for this example because that's my real students right there. But if I was doing it with my fake document, it would just generate report cards with their names in them. So here's a report card comment for student 2. Student 2 is a talented artist who is transitioning their skills to digital platforms. They're working towards their goal of graphic storytelling through comics using the Adobe suite. Student 2 demonstrates strong applied technology skills as they are exploring existing, new, and emerging tools, technologies, and systems like the Adobe suite to evaluate their suitability for design interests. In line with reciprocal relationships, student 2 is encouraged to continue to learn from other media arts professionals. This will support their development, maintenance, and evolution in voice and storytelling. To refine their technical skills, student 2 is encouraged to focus on developing their skills on the PC for long-term skill development. In addition, student 2 should focus on increasing their pace of work. That's a pretty decent report card comment that generated for my entire class times 30 kids in seconds.
That's amazing.
And it's just like, I've just got this running document and it just pumps this stuff out. And if you use my template, because my document didn't have the grades in it, if you use my template, it'll include the grade in there as well and rank them on the proficiency scale and include all that language. It is unbelievable time saving. And it's just built. So now I've got this essentially this tool. I'll jump over to my other tab. So I've got this report cards notebook. This tool is now built, and now I have it forever. So when I go to do my career life education, I just turn those off, add my career life education, select my sources, do my career life education report cards. Done. Check, uncheck this one, do my media arts report card, done. And I'm actually I'm doing a better job doing report cards doing it this way because it's my full 5-month observational history of these kids rather than my single Sunday observational history the day that I have to write report cards. And I think that improves my life and it improves my students' life and makes parents' understanding of learning that's happening in the classroom way, way better. Okay, time to make your best friend of your admin. I've got 9 minutes. I think I'm just going to jump ahead real quick. Collab with your team. Okay. Let's say you're an administrator or you know an administrator or you feel bad for an administrator. They have to deal with so many policy documents. So what I did is I went onto my district's website and I downloaded every board policy. I downloaded every administrative procedure. I downloaded our collective agreements with CUPE and my teacher union. I downloaded all the inclusive education practices. I downloaded the district strategic plan, and then I loaded them into what I now call a policy manual. And so I was a vice principal very, very briefly for 3 months. I did a medical leave. I covered a medical leave as a vice principal 5 or 6 years ago, and utmost respect for administrators, but I got a really good insight into what it was like to do that job. And you are searching and scouring, and you have families coming in that need to understand policies that they don't read day to day. So what do? You have this, which is now your policy secretary. So, for example, I am a principal at a school and blah, 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 blah. Attached are all the board administrative policies and procedures. I have a student who is demonstrating potentially harmful online behavior, posting violent and explicit content and sharing it with other students. I am inviting his parents in for a conversation. Can you find me all the relevant policy and procedure I need to consider and that I should share with his parents? Please reference specific policy documents. And so I know that these policies exist. I just don't want to spend half an hour scrolling through this giant website of PDFs to find them all. And then it outputs this great, almost copy and paste document that you can share with your students' parents. And it references all the specific documents and how they're coming into play in that conversation. As an administrator, just an immediate massive time saver. Today in our junior high program, 2 students were involved in a physical altercation that was sudden, unplanned, and resulted in only minor and non-threatening injuries. We have decided to send them home for the day and have a re-entry meeting with both their parents individually. Can you craft an email home to let parents know the process and reference the relevant policy and procedure documents as part of that email to let them know why this is happening and next steps? Boom, out it comes. And so they know the policy. They're not replacing their thinking. They're just accelerating the process by keeping it all within this thing. A parent has complained about a teacher on staff not teaching math, and they have yet to contact the teacher about it. Based on the attached policy and procedures, please respond to the parent with reference to the process in the documentation about how they should best go about voicing their concerns in the appropriate way. Boom. Away you go. It refers to the collective agreement. It refers to the district policy. It refers to district policy, all like that. An immediate huge win for anybody doing this type of work. I also threw some funny ones at it. What if a teacher wants to bring a dog to class? Turns out there's a policy for that. So how do you respond to a teacher who's asking if they can bring their doggy into school? But it knows that because there's AP 1503 and policy 760 that govern the use of animals in schools. Boom, out it comes. How many principals are going to have the dog policy memorized? Probably not a lot. Another what was that thing tool policy manual example is like a teacher trying to get out of having a certain student in the class. How do you work with that teacher? How do you coach them? What are the inclusive ed documents? And it's just pulling all of this information real time, really fast so that you can have those conversations and do that professional coaching. Unbelievable. And the follow-up is, yes, you can share at the top right of your notebooks is you can hit share. So my admin document I have shared with my school administrator. So our vice principal looked at that and was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I shared it to him. He is a viewer, so he can interact with the tool, but he can't add sources. An owner gets full access, or owner or editor. I'm the owner. An editor will be able to add or remove sources. A viewer can just query the notebook. So let's say you're doing this at a district level. District staff could create the admin policy toolbook and then share it to their admin teams as viewers to use and query as required. And so they don't accidentally remove something or mess something up. And it's got, the specific context in which the district policy wants them to work. All great stuff. And now we have a couple minutes to play, and I think it's probably end of session time. So you guys go play. Let me know if you have questions in the chat, and then I'm going to let Sarah take over the slideshow and the show again and wrap things up for us. Whew.
Thank you so much, Danny. That was absolutely amazing. There's so much cool stuff for us there, and I can tell from the activity in the chat that everyone is kind of as just inspired and trying to think of ideas as I am. So I am going to remind everyone that CS Ed Week is coming up, and I've just dropped that link in the chat. We do have tons of programming going on for you and your students during CS Ed Week, including my favorite Minecraft Hour of Code lesson ever, which is basically what if the Muppet Show happened in Minecraft. And it's so much fun. So I love that one, but there are tons of other non-Minecraft things going on too. So be sure to check that out and see if there is anything that is going to be right for you and your classroom. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I am going to drop one more link into the chat for you, which is our feedback form. If you can take the last 2 minutes of the session to go ahead and fill that out, that is extremely helpful for us to know how we're doing, to know what kind of PD would be useful for you next. So please do go ahead and take that time to fill that out. We would really, really appreciate it. So that is going to wrap us up. There is one more session in the summit, so I will be ducking out to the next one, and I hope I will see some of you there. But have an amazing rest of your day, everyone, and have fun using all of these amazing new tools. Oh, before we say goodbye, Danny, I'm going to let you address that one last question for Julia.
Yes, and Julia, I can connect with you via Blue Sky or your format of choice, and we can figure out how that looks.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing day.